Well, hello, Cheyenne. It is so wonderful to have you here. Welcome to the Nutra Narratives podcast.
Thank you.
Wow, I have not known you for long, but in the short, brief moment that we have been talking, I have already discovered that your life is so amazing. And so that's why I invited you to come on board to share your story.
Thank you. That's really kind of you.
Thank you. So currently you are a student where in what program?
So I'm currently a student at Loma Linda, and I'm in the Master's of Public Health, but in nutrition. So also going to get my RDN.
Yes. Yay.
I know.
Fabulous.
Yes.
But prior to coming to Loma Linda, you had a very interesting life, or at least the degree in the life that you had prior to coming here. I found, wow. Can you please share that along with then what got you interested in pursuing nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of thinking about like the original spark of what made me interested in nutrition. Personally, I feel like it's probably when I decided to become a vegetarian, but that was back like junior year of high school.
Oh,
So a little bit of me was like, oh, like I'm starting this new diet habit. How do I feed my body and what changes? And so along those lines, personally, I had like a topical interest in nutrition. Um, but it kind of started to evolve into more of a passion, I would say, my senior year of undergraduate. So I went to Seattle Pacific University in Washington, and I studied global development with an emphasis in human capital. Um, and
it
that's kind
sounds
of like,
complicated.
yes, it is. And I always feel like when I tell people, they're like, wow, that's really awesome. And then a few seconds later, they're like, what does that mean?
Right.
And
Exactly.
so,
My
yeah,
exact thoughts.
exactly. So it was kind of just like a major that specifically looked at what makes a country developed and what makes a country developing, or what are the policies or certain aspects and characteristics of that country that will help them become developed. And then within that, I kind of zeroed in on an interest in human capital. So what that means is pretty much, how does the health of an individual or a group of people affect the economic stability or political stability of a country?
Wow.
So if you have a healthy population, then you're going to have a productive workforce. So you're more likely going to have a sustainable economy or sustainable government.
Mm.
So during my time of studying, I kind of took an interest in a few specific countries, and one of them being Uganda. So between my junior and senior year of college, I went and I lived in Uganda for about 3 months, and I worked with a nonprofit. I was a program developer. So I would go out to these villages or schools and kind of assess the need. Kind of what was their main need, and then solutions that could potentially solve it. And I'd work with either the chief of the village or a teacher at a school, and kind of collaboratively coming up with these solutions. But while I was there, I worked at a clinic as well as kind of like an orphanage. But it was more of like a daytime daycare for working mothers that lived in a slum.
Mm.
Um, and when I was there, I just honestly was blown away by how many children are visibly severely malnourished, to the point of, at one point I was handed a child who was I was told was 10 months old, but physically it looked like they were 3 months old. And
Oh,
just the impact that would have on so many aspects of that child's life. And I felt like my heart just started to become so soft to it. And when I started asking people, like, is there a dietitian, or, is there a nutrition specialist? And they'd be like, no, there's no one. There's absolutely no dietitian in all of the city I was staying at. There was nurses and doctors who, kind of took that position, but no one understood nutrition, or no one really had a background in it. So I asked one of the nurses that I knew if there was any dietitian in all of Uganda working. And she said, yes, there's one. And I said, there's one. And she said, there's one, and he lives part-time in England, and he comes and visits every few months. And that was it.
Really?
Yet one of the leading causes of death in children under the age of 5 is malnutrition, or the diseases that come along with it. So I think at that point I started thinking, this is a huge issue and someone needs to solve it. And I thought, well, why not me? I could solve it.
Yes, indeed.
So just through that, and I mean, there was definitely like ups and downs and, you know, changing career paths at the last minute right before I graduated college. But I'm here, and I definitely feel like it is, you know, a calling that God has given me, and that if I show up, he'll get me through it. So that's kind of how the interest in nutrition started, and also how it has evolved over time.
Yes, that's such a beautiful story. And so, Cheyenne, when you were there, was it strange to be in a different country? Had you been to another country prior? Was there a culture shock? What was the adjustment period like for you living there for?
Yeah, that's a great question. To be honest, it wasn't that bad. I have traveled to other countries doing other types of either volunteer work or internships. I've been to like South Asia and Nepal and Bhutan, and have been definitely blessed to have the opportunity to, you know, see the world and see what's out there. So I felt like the shock wasn't that bad. I think it was more so coming back, going back to Seattle after living in Mbale, which is about 10 or 11 hours north of really the only large city in Uganda. And I was living in a house with some of my colleagues, but it was like on the backside of the largest slum in Northeast Africa. So it was definitely, while I was there, I felt like I, you know, belonged there, and I felt like there was just joy in being there, and small things that would probably bother me living here didn't bother me at all. And I definitely think that's just the grace of God. But I think it was more coming back, right? So I'm living in this basically small city. I worked in villages, and I got used to, you know, bathing in just like a bucket, or, you know, eating simple foods and having a very slow paced life. And then I jumped back into a life in Seattle, and I lived in the city. You know, I took the bus to work, and it's so crowded. I felt like the shock really was coming back and starting to get back to this normal way of living when I lived a life and saw things that were so drastically different. But I definitely think that the shock came more from coming back.
Yeah, it was a readjustment back to life over here.
Absolutely. Definitely. Like hot water.
You're like, what
At
is
first,
this?
right. At first I was like, oh, how am I going to live? Like, there's no hot water here. Like, how is that going to happen? And then coming back to Seattle, I was like, this is overwhelming. The hot water, like, it's just, you turn it on and it's here. And it's not like I forgot, but it was more just used to a life without it. And the life was great, and it didn't bother me. So it was just different coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. That reminds me, I was born here, but I have gone to the Philippines 7 times. And the first several times was shocking, because it's like that, where you use, when you take a shower, we call it a tabo. And so it's like this little bowl, and then there's a bucket, and then we fill up the bucket with water, and then we just, you know, gather the water and put it over us, you know, like that. But it's doable. It's not impossible.
Absolutely. And it just really, I think, I mean, often when people go to developing countries, they're going to say like, oh, you know, put things in perspective, right? Or people there are happy and they, you know, have so much less. And those are common things you hear. But in all honesty, I felt that the kind of just the lifestyle of rest was so different there that it brought about stronger community. It brought about just more natural and genuine joy that I was like, I'd rather live here. It's just,
Wow.
it's honestly so beautiful. I think just the way that they choose to live their life.
That is so encouraging to hear. And I resonate with that too. Every time I've gone to the Philippines, it's like they have way less. But as you said, they're more joyful, they're more content. And it's like, wow, we envy that. And
Absolutely.
we want to be like them, and we learn from them to be happy with much less. And I'm glad you brought that up as something that you have also seen. It
Yeah.
over
It,
there.
yes, it was definitely, I think also just my role as, a project developer and going into villages and assessing their need, right? I go in often, you go into those places already with an assumption of what they need. Like, oh, they need this because I know they don't have it.
Yeah.
Or, this is a solution to something that's probably wrong. But when you talk to them, their needs are so different than what, your assumptions are, because our assumptions are based off of this Western culture that tells us we need this, this, and this, when in reality, the needs and their potential solutions are honestly way more creative, as well as way more knowledgeable and wise about, what makes life valuable. And I think that really demonstrates how intelligent, people are, as well as just their wisdom and care for their neighbor. Because often the needs that they would say weren't their personal needs, but it was the needs of their neighbor or the collective community, which
That's
I think,
admirable.
yes, it was amazing.
Hmm. Do you keep in touch with the people there, the programs that you have set up? Are you still in connection with them?
Yeah, yes, I am. I started going to a church there, and at first, none of my colleagues shared my faith, which was totally fine. They're great people, but when I first started, working there, I thought, well, I like want to find a church, right? But I'm in the middle of nowhere in Northeast Africa. How can I find a church? And I stumbled upon this kind of coffee shop, bookstore, and was talking to one of the baristas, and she was like, oh, my husband's a pastor. Do you want to go with us? And I was like, absolutely. So I ended up going to their church. I had no idea what kind of church it was. It ends up being a village church where it's in this small, area, but it's absolutely beautiful. And I was the only white person there. They'd always call me the Mzungu. But there was one other woman who I saw kind of a week after I showed up, who was also a white woman. And I started talking to her, and she moved there when she was a little bit older than me and took in a ton of kids and had kind of just started raising these children, but has also submerged herself in the culture. And she's an incredible woman. But I keep in contact with her as well as just her kids. I grew pretty close to one of her kids, and we'll regularly message each other and, just keep each other up to date. And I have a few other friends that I probably talk to every few months. And then as well as my pastor that I met there, he's great. I still talk to him and his wife. They will definitely be lifelong friends. I'm hoping to go back as soon as everything with the world kind of simmers down.
Oh, so you do have plans to go back. Okay,
Yes,
good.
yes. I was planning on going back this summer between, the end of summer quarter and the beginning of fall, but just with everything, it's not the wisest. So I'll be going back whenever, I'll have that time and things will be back open. But yes, I definitely still have friends there, and they're lovely people.
Ah, excellent. So you did the 3-month trip over there, and then you came back to school to finish
Mhm.
off the school year, and then you graduated.
Yes. So it was a crazy time. I came back kind of, with the idea of I want to do nutrition, or I want to start pursuing this in a more, serious way. And when I came back, it was still in the back of my head, but other opportunities came up, and was thinking, okay, well, I'll do this opportunity, and, I'll say yes to this and kind of keep nutrition on the back burner. And, if God has a plan for it, then he'll make it happen, kind of thing. And So I followed with this opportunity, and it ended up changing at the last minute. 2 months before I graduated, it was like, hey, this opportunity is actually not there anymore. So you got to find something else. And I remember sitting in my apartment a week before a week before you have to like say what you're going to do after college for, your graduation. And I remember thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I just started praying. And, at that same time, I was like, I told God, I'm going to keep this on the back burner. If he wants to do something with it, he will. And here I am. It's like one door closed, the door that's obviously open. And God's like, this way, like clearly pointing to me this way. So then about 2 months before I graduated, I decided, okay, Loma Linda, here it is. And here I go. And kind of moved back here, kind of blind on, what it looks like, and really starting the program. I don't know what, jobs I'm interested in, and I don't know where this is going to lead. But just trusting, I feel like, was a huge, huge growing thing for me in that season.
That is amazing. And you know what? Because you are very much in tune and willing to listen to God and where he's taking you. I know that he doesn't have to show the whole plan right now, but he's like, I need you here at Loma Linda right now. And you walk through that door that opened wide. And then I just know he's going to keep on revealing the next steps as you go through them. So this is so exciting to see.
It is.
Where it will ultimately take you. Will it be back in Uganda or another country? Or, I'm going to be looking for you then and interviewing you. Like, where are you now? What are you doing?
I'm excited too. I'm just like, I have always said just following Jesus is the greatest and the best and most exciting adventure that I will ever go on. And he has the best things in store for me. So if I just say yes to him, there's always going to be more, and there's always going to be, better, more than what I could even imagine. So I'm excited too.
Yes. And please remember that you are so young, and yet you already have that maturity to trust in the Lord in that much. And that is so admirable, because I didn't really have like plans, but as soon as I graduated, the next day, the plans unraveled. And so he will just keep on unraveling each one at a time. And as you said, it's going to be better than what you ever thought, because I never thought I'd be at Loma Linda teaching, and I love teaching, but that was never in my plans. So the way you've left it open for God to just take over, it's going to be so incredibly amazing where he will lead you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so then let's see. You are also, I just have to bring this in, you are the Nutrition Council Student Association president for this year.
I am.
Yes, and that's how I got to know you. It's because I'm also an advisor for the group, and so this is exciting that I got to meet you in this way. Yeah. And so what are your hopes? Yeah, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but what are your hopes for NCSA this coming school year?
I think really talking to the officers and just talking, amongst ourselves, I think we all have a united idea and kind of passion to really bring together the School of Allied Health and the School of Public Health. I think often there's not this division, but the separation between the two, right? Because we're only taking so many classes together. And but at the same time, both of these groups of girls or guys, even though there's like two guys, but we both have the same exact passions.
Yeah, right.
So we're both passionate about the same thing, right? Getting, healthy through food and the interest of food science and whatever that entails. So I think really this coming year, it's for me, my motivation is really to lead in a place that creates just a strong community between the two, because people who are getting their master's in public health and then people who are getting their master's in nutrition. We're both learning the same thing, but at the same time learning different things. And I really think that those differences would definitely benefit each other, right? That's like the whole point of networking. And,
Absolutely.
we can definitely learn from one another. So I really think that that is kind of my passion going into this year, and overall just creating a space for community, and also a space to learn. We're having a lot of really amazing RDNs coming and talking. We already have the whole first quarter lined up for
Oh
one
my goodness.
per month.
Wow.
I know. So
Fantastic.
yes, it has been great. Eliza's doing an amazing job collecting RDNs and getting in contact with them. So I'm really excited. I'm hoping that this year is great.
Yeah. You also have a great team that you get to
Yes,
work with. So
absolutely. They're
it's so
amazing.
evident. And you know what? You guys are the first ones that are having to deal with a brand new school year starting off online.
Yes.
So
Kickoff party was
first
a
in
little bit different.
history.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're excited. We're getting creative with it, and I think it is a opportunity to be more intentional with new members and returning members. And so we're getting by, and we're still excited, and we're not going to let that get us down too much.
There you go. That is fantastic.
Yeah.
So this leads me then to, what are your 3 personal nutrition practices or practices to take care of you?
Great question. Man, I was thinking about this earlier, and I was like, is there, I feel like there's so many that you just do subconsciously. But I think if I had to choose 3 that I'm like, okay, every day I am, actually actively thinking about this choice. One would be probably a classic answer that most dietetic students would probably answer with is, the focus of having each meal being half my plate or half my consumption being fruits or vegetables, and having a plant-based approach to what I'm eating. That would definitely be the first one. Probably the most boring and practical,
No, but
but
it needs to be heard over and over again. So,
absolutely. And yeah, and honestly, as I've evolved into my current diet habits, I think now I'm in a place where I'm not even really thinking about half my plate being vegetables. It's kind of just my natural inclination, because this is what I eat and this is what I enjoy eating.
great.
So that would probably be the first one.
Yes.
The second one, I think, is just eating what I like and eating what I love. Often I think people not in the field of dietetics or nutrition assume that healthy means giving up what they like or giving up what tastes good.
Excellent point.
But I actually enjoy what I eat. And if I want to eat something that's maybe, higher in calories or higher in sugar or whatever it is, I'm going to allow myself to eat it, but it's going to be a very small portion, or I'm going to eat it in moderation. But I'm still going to, satisfy whatever that desire is in a healthy way. So I think that's probably the second one, just enjoying food and being so thankful for it. And then the third one would probably be choosing ethical decisions and keeping myself accountable. Over the time of, one, studying at Loma Linda, but 2, being exposed to people who may not have the access to food that we have access to, it has really encouraged me, as well as made me more passionate about what I'm choosing to eat and what I'm choosing to spend my money on. So that saying of, you vote with your fork. What you eat, you are making a vote for, right? So I'm going to try and not eat animal-based products, because I know what it does, one, to the environment, as well as to livelihoods of people around the world. And 2, I try to eat organic. I know that it's more costly, and sometimes it's harder, but I think it's a sacrifice that I can make that really helps the livelihoods of people in countries that, I've never been to or I've never met someone from. But the aspect of, I think, what GMOs can do to farmers in far off places is really discouraging and disappointing, what the normal consumer may not know. I definitely think the third one is trying to eat ethically, as well as buy things that are more ethical, whether it's buying from a local farmer or purchasing from a grocery store that I know they're purchasing things that they're paying the farmer a fair wage. So yeah, I think that those are three of the ones that I actively think about.
Yeah. And it's so beautifully said too. It's so
Thank you.
that's very encouraging and such a great reminder for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, I'd like to end with if there are future potential other nutrition students, or if they're thinking about it, they're thinking about going into nutrition, what would you advise them with? Yeah, what pieces of information, or even just one?
Right. If someone was going into the field,
Yeah.
I think that being creative with what you want to do. I think often in undergrad, at least the friends I know that were in the dietetics program at my university, it was very, I have to work in a hospital, or I have to work in, clinical, or this is what it looks like. And, hearing from one of my friends that she loves nutrition, but how it was portrayed in college made it sound like she had to do it this way. And she didn't like it doing it that way. So I think people going into the field, understanding that nutrition is in every aspect of life. It's something that you do every day. You eat food. And because of that, it's a part of every work environment. It's a part of every aspect of a career. There's going to be some role that a dietitian plays or some role that a nutritionist plays. So I think not limiting yourself. If you have, like me, I have a passion for global policy. And at first I was like, how am I going to mesh that with nutrition? And then starting to realize there's so many job opportunities as being a nutrition consultant or a nutrition specialist for organizations, and being able to mesh something that I love with nutrition, something else that I love, and pairing those two together. And I think often, new people coming into the field or learning about it don't really think about the creative part of nutrition. So I would just encourage people to look up online, careers in nutrition, and do research about things that you're interested in. And if there's a dietitian right now doing it, or if there's a nutrition right now doing it. And one of the things I do is just reach out to people. I have a LinkedIn. If there's someone that comes up and they have the position that I would love, I message them. And I say like, hey, would you, mind to have a phone call with me? And I've actually have met a lot of future people that I may work with, or, mentors, or even just wise women who have started to speak advice and encouragement, as well as just guidance into my career. So I definitely think just being creative with what you want to do with nutrition, and not being afraid to reach out to people in that position already.
You have made such an important statement there, or something very important for future dietitians and students to embrace. We don't have to be pigeonholed to just working in the hospital. And although that is definitely important, what you said, the sky is the limit for where dietitians are needed. And it's up to us to take that initiative to be creative in presenting ourselves and say, I could serve you here.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, so that's excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, your time with me today, and to the listeners. I have been so encouraged, and I am looking forward to continually working with you this coming school year. I know you have already great things planned for the students, and just talking to you, I know you have that built-in leader in you, and I love the way you look at things, and that you also listen to what people have to say, and you're very respectful in your dealings with people. So it's been refreshing to work with you in the short amount of time we've worked together. So
thank you so much. You've been honestly a blessing to NCSA, and just how you place yourself in a position that is super accessible to students, I think is great. And it's also in some regards rare and very refreshing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We are blessed to have one another.
Yeah.
So I just want God to just bless you this year because you have such an important role, and I know you're going to tackle it with grace as you already have. So thank you so much, and may God bless you, and take care.